If you've ever driven across Nevada on US Route 50, you know why they call it the loneliest road in America. For long stretches, there's nothing but sagebrush, mountains, and the occasional rabbit darting across your headlights. On a Saturday night in October 2014, I found myself on that two-lane ribbon of asphalt, chasing a deadline and a bad idea. I was moving from Denver to Sacramento and had miscalculated the distance between gas stations. By the time the sun set behind the Desatoya Range, I was cursing my own optimism and my near-empty tank. If I'd known what was waiting in those miles of dark, I might have taken the long way around. At about 11 p.m., I rolled through the ghost town of Middlegate Station, an outpost with a bar, a few trailers, and a pump lit by a single yellow bulb. The bar was closed. A handwritten sign taped to the door said, "Back tomorrow." I filled up, paid at the pump, and stretched my legs. The air smelled like gasoline and sage. Somewhere, a coyote howled. Behind me, the lights of my Subaru illuminated the highway stretching west, empty and straight. That's when I saw the first sign, one of those official blue markers Nevada puts up for scenic turnouts. Only this one had been altered. In white spray paint, someone had written, "Don't stop after 12 a.m." I laughed it off. This road attracts drifters and pranksters. I got back in the car, turned up an AM station out of Fallon, and headed toward the darkness. The desert at night plays tricks on your eyes. Reflective posts appear like pairs of eyes before you realize they're just mile markers. The radio fuzzed with static. About 30 minutes later, I saw headlights in my rearview mirror, a big rig gaining on me. Its high beams flashed, then flashed again. I eased to the right to let it pass, but it didn't. Instead, it slowed to match my speed. My pulse picked up. I pressed the accelerator. The truck stayed with me, its engine growling. Suddenly, its horn blasted, 3 short bursts. My hands tightened on the wheel. There are legends about truckers on this highway. Stories of serial killers and phantom hitchhikers, mostly told at diners over bad coffee. I tried to rationalize. Maybe he'd seen something wrong with my car. An oil leak, a flat tire. I checked my gauges. Everything looked fine. The truck's horn blared again. I made a split-second decision and took the next turnout, a dirt road leading to an abandoned mining site near Sand Mountain. The truck roared past, tires throwing gravel, then slowed and stopped about a quarter-mile up. Its brake lights glowed red. The driver's door opened. A man got out and started running toward me, waving his arms. I hit lock on my doors out of instinct and reached under the seat for the tire iron. The man, a lean guy in a reflective vest, stopped a few yards away and shouted, "There's someone in your back seat." My heart slammed against my ribs. Every nerve screamed to turn around, peel out, leave him in the dust. Instead, adrenaline and curiosity made me glance over my shoulder. The back seat was empty. Groceries, blankets, a cooler. No one. I cracked the window 2 inches. "What are you talking about?" I yelled. "I saw a head in your rear window when you passed me at Dry Lake," he said, breathing hard. "Looked like a kid sitting up." I told him he must have been mistaken. We argued for a minute, his eyes searching the dark interior of my car. Finally, he shook his head, jogged back to his truck, and drove off without another word. I sat there, shaking. Maybe he'd been drinking. Maybe he was messing with me. I pushed my seat back, took a few deep breaths, and convinced myself to keep driving. The rest of the way to Fallon, I didn't see another vehicle. At 2:15 a.m., I checked into a motel that smelled like bleach and cigarettes. I triple-locked the door and collapsed on the bed. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I loaded up and noticed a smear on the inside of the rear window. Tiny, like someone had run their finger through dust. It wasn't there when I packed the car in Denver. I swiped it with my thumb. It left a faint streak of oil. I told myself it was from my own hands the night before. Then I turned on my phone and saw I had a notification from my Dashcam app. It had been recording the entire drive. I hadn't checked it because I'd been focusing on the road. Curiosity won out. I rewound to around midnight when the truck first appeared behind me. At 00:12:43, the Dashcam captured my car passing mile marker 97. Headlights appear behind me. The image wobbles with the bumps in the road. At 00:30:02, the camera's infrared picks up something in the back seat. For a split second, in the rearview reflection, there is a shape, a pale oval, like a child's face, eyes dark, mouth slack. It appears behind the driver's seat, vanishes, then reappears lower as if ducking. My hands grip the wheel. I see nothing. At 00:13:08, the truck's lights flash, and the face is gone. There are plenty of reasons to stay out of abandoned coal mines in the Appalachian Mountains. Unstable timbers, poisonous gases, the fact that whole hillsides can collapse without warning. I know all that. My grandfather worked underground in West Virginia until the day he died from black lung. Maybe that's why I've always been drawn to the old company towns scattered along the New River Gorge. In November 2019, curiosity pulled me and a buddy into Kmore No. 1, an abandoned mine carved into the side of a cliff near Fayetteville, West Virginia. We carried headlamps and a GoPro, thinking we'd film decaying rail lines and rusting machinery. What we captured instead still makes my skin crawl. Kmore was one of the largest producers in the New River coalfield. Between 1900 and 1962, miners extracted millions of tons of coal from its seam. The work was brutal. Men hunched over in 3-foot-high tunnels for 12 hours at a time, the only light coming from carbide lamps on their caps. Explosions and cave-ins were common. In 1920, a methane fire killed 9 men. In 1943, another explosion took 12 more. The coal barons got rich. Families buried their dead on the hillside. When the mine finally closed in the early 60s, the company town emptied out. The forest crept back. Rust crept into the rails. Locals whispered that some of the miners never left. We hiked down the 821 steps that lead from the ridge top to the entrance. Steps built for men who made this trip twice a day for decades. The mouth of the mine gaped like a throat. Cool, damp air poured out. Our headlamps illuminated timbers blackened by decades of coal dust. A narrow-gauge rail line disappeared into darkness. Graffiti near the entrance warned, "In spray paint." Turn back. We didn't. Inside, the temperature dropped. Water dripped from the ceiling. Our footsteps echoed off walls carved more than a century ago. I ran the GoPro on my helmet, its red light blinking. We narrated what we saw. Collapsed ceilings. A rusted tram car frozen mid-journey after about 300 yards. The passage forked. To the left, rubble. To the right, a tunnel reinforced with newer timber. We took the right. That's when we heard it. Faint at first, like someone shuffling behind us. We stopped, turned our headlamps back. Nothing. The sound came again, a soft scraping, followed by a low, rhythmic grunt. It sounded eerily like someone swinging a pickaxe. My buddy whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, throat tight. We stood there in absolute darkness except for our lamps, trying to rationalize. Maybe water dripping on loose rock, maybe animals. But the sound had cadence, effort. I raised the camera to scan the tunnel. In the beam of my headlamp, something flickered, a figure, no more than a shadow, standing 30 feet away. It wore what looked like a miner's helmet. Its outline was blurred, like heat rising off asphalt. We froze. Then the light hit the wall. The figure was gone. My heart pounded in my ears. "Let's go," my buddy whispered. We backed away slowly, keeping our lights on the tunnel. The scraping continued, now behind us, then ahead, as if echoing all around. Back in daylight. Adrenaline still coursed through my veins. We laughed it off as nerves. When I got home to Charleston, I uploaded the footage. Most of it was what I expected. Darkness, beams of light, us whispering. Then, at 13 minutes and 47 seconds, the camera picked up something we didn't register in the moment. As I pan past a support beam, a pale face appears between the slats, a gaunt face with a beard and hollow eyes under a helmet. He looks directly at the camera, then vanishes. In the audio, layered under the drip of water, a voice murmurs, "Leave it be." I replayed it dozens of times, hoping it was dust or a trick of light. I sent the clip to a friend who works in film. He slowed it down, enhanced it. The face is there, the eyes are tired, and in that one frame, you can see a carbide lamp strapped to his forehead, a model they stopped making in the 1950s. Curious, I took the video to the Appalachian Miners Museum in Beckley. An older gentleman behind the desk watched it, jaw tightening. "K-Moore was bad," he said, turning the laptop away. "Men died in there, and some folks say you can hear 'em digging. My uncle was in the 1920 fire, burned his lungs. He used to say sometimes he'd hear voices in the gob, where they dumped waste rock, telling him to get out." He looked at me hard. "If you heard it too, you were lucky they let you leave." I've debated releasing the video. Part of me worries about inviting thrill-seekers into a dangerous place. Part of me thinks those men deserve to be remembered. I've already been contacted by a couple of ghost hunting groups who want to go back with me. I'm not sure that's a good idea. There's also a rumor about a sealed section of K-Moore No. 1 that was abandoned after the 1943 explosion. According to a handwritten map at the Miners Museum, there's a passage leading to a secondary shaft filled with equipment and possibly the remains of the men who didn't make it out. Nobody has documented what's down there. The Park Service keeps it locked. A retired ranger told me he'd show me the access point if I promised to respect the site. It was October 2024 when I drove into the Smoky Mountains, a chill wind cutting through Maggie Valley and stirring up memories older than the paved streets. Locals warned me about the mountain's curse, but a man who's seen war and watched economies rise and fall isn't easily spooked. I wanted to see why this place, once the jewel of western North Carolina, now hides behind whisper and rumor. My first stop was a relic perched on Buck Mountain. In 1959, a Virginia entrepreneur named R.B. Coburn sold bonds to build a Wild West theme park at 4,050 feet above sea level. He called it Ghost Town in the sky, and when it opened in 1961, the double-incline railway and chairlift hauled up nearly 700,000 visitors a year. The park had a saloon, a church, and hourly shootouts where cowboys dropped like flies on the dusty street. Back then, the park felt invincible, but time isn't kind to dreams. By the late 1980s, the Western craze had cooled. Management ignored maintenance. Rides broke down, and in 2002, the chairlift stranded passengers for 2 hours in the July heat. The park closed. Investors poured $49 million into a 2007 resurrection, only to see a mudslide in 2010 when a retaining wall failed and dozens of homes below were evacuated. Alaska Presley, a local businesswoman, bought the property in 2012 and struggled to reopen it. Water issues and inspections plagued the park until her death in April 22. Today, lawsuits tangle over the ownership. Vandals have stripped the buildings, and the future remains uncertain. Standing among rotting wooden storefronts and rusting rides, I felt the weight of optimism turned sour. Sometimes curses aren't made of spirits at all. They're made of bad decisions and broken promises. The real tragedies of this region lie deeper, beneath the clear waters of Fontana Lake. In the early 1940s, while the world was at war, the Tennessee Valley Authority broke ground on Fontana Dam to electrify aluminum plants and help the war effort. The dam's construction flooded 68,000 acres and forced more than 1,000 families from their homes. Towns like Fontana, Bushnell, Judson, and Proctor vanished under the reservoir. Judson had only 600 inhabitants, but its buildings and cemeteries were centuries old. Residents were told the federal government would build a road along the lake's north shore so they could visit their families' graves. Only 7 miles were ever completed. By 1972, funding and environmental protests stopped construction. Locals sarcastically call the unfinished asphalt the road to nowhere. In 2007, a study confirmed the road would cause major, long-term environmental damage. That same year, Swain County took a $52 million settlement from the National Park Service and agreed to drop its demand for the road. The final payment arrived in June 2018. The money sits in a state account. The county can spend only the interest. On a damp morning, I walked to the end of the asphalt, where the pavement plunges into a dark tunnel carved through granite. Cold air blew from inside. I could almost hear the voices of families who surrendered farms, homes, and ancestral cemeteries, waiting for a road that never came. Those families once lived in places like Proctor, a town on Hazel Creek named after Moses Proctor. In 1944, it was flooded by Fontana Lake. Only a single house and the ruins of a lumber mill survive on dry land today. Former residents were promised a highway along the north side, but only 7 miles were built, and the rest of the route became part of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The National Park Service offered ferry boats to visit the submerged cemeteries. When the lake level drops in winter, wooden stumps from Judson's houses protrude from the mud like broken teeth. Those skeletal foundations are more haunting than any ghost. As night fell, I headed east toward Asheville and checked into the Grove Park Inn, a granite fortress built in 1913, a century of presidents. Musicians and bootleggers have slept here. The bellman didn't flinch when I asked about the Pink Lady. They say she's the ghost of a young woman who fell from a 5th-floor balcony in the 1920s. Some whispers claim she leaped after a married lover ended an affair. Others insist she simply slipped. Staff have seen a pink mist in the hallways or a woman in a ball gown by room 545. Children wake to find her stroking their hands and telling stories. Lights flicker, objects move, and guests feel someone tickling their feet in the night. After decades on the road, I've learned to respect the places where stories refuse to die. At 2 a.m., I walked past room 545. The hallway was empty, but perfume lingered, and every hair on my arms stood up.